All right, so universities are bad places. Universities have been bad, poisonous, evil places for a very long time in this country. Everyone's starting to figure this out more and more, and thanks to all this Hamas crap going on in Colombia, that gas pedal appears to be pressed to the floor at this point in time. Joining me now, my friend needs no friggin' introduction on this show, on this network, hosts the biggest radio show in the country, Clay and Buck Sexton. All right, Buck. Universities are bad, evil places. I'm not sure why I'm supposed to give a crap that Colombia is burning down. That sounds wonderful to me. I've always wanted Colombia to burn down.
Yeah, I think that what you're seeing is just that there's been decades of intellectual, cultural, and moral rot at these places. And now it's on an issue that has somehow been able to unite, I think, a lot of the worst leftist factions on campus. And you have people who have a lot of influence, who ordinarily are quiet about what's going on the campuses, suddenly saying they won't give money and saying that, you know, this is too far, this is too much. I mean, to this, I always want to say, you know, they've been assaulting conservative speakers, including like elderly people like Charles Murray, and they've been doing this for the last 20 years, and their politics haven't changed at all. This issue, all of a sudden, some people are waking up, and I guess it's a good thing, sure, but we told you so is kind of tough not to say here. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We told you so. You just now woke up and decided Colombia was an evil communist dump that was poisonous to America. That you just found that out a couple days ago? All right, so along those lines, Buck, we already saw Claudine Gay get the heave-ho at Harvard. She's not the last, for sure. There will be other heads rolling at universities, in large part because of what you said, that donor money, that sweet, sweet donor money's going away. You don't get Robert Kraft Hall anymore at Columbia. But they're not stopping, Buck. We have all these big mega donors leaving, and yesterday the faculty joined the students at Columbia. It's not like they're slowing down. What say you?
Well, you know, these are icebergs in terms of the endowments of these places that will take a long time to melt. You look at Harvard. What is Harvard's? Is it 40 billion or 60 billion? I don't even know how many tens of billions it is now. But a lot of these schools have just been they're increasingly becoming hedge funds that happen to teach classes, right? I mean, they have so much wealth amassed from the donors for particularly the last 20 years or so. So, you know, they will be able to push through this for a period of time. And I also think that, you know, we're forgetting there are a lot of people who are making noise on this issue. This will fade. And I don't think that they will have changed their mind on a whole range of other things. And they'll probably go back to writing the checks. I hate to say it. I just think that this is a little bit of a donor tantrum that's going on that I think will be short-lived. And I think that that's why a lot of these, you know, they realize that it's affecting their bottom line. I mean, to be sure, that's why they're sending in the police in some of these places, as you're seeing on the screen. But fundamentally, the problem, Jesse, it's not like this is a one rule or a policy that the university can change. You would have to fire most of the tenured staff at most of the elite universities in the country if you wanted this mentality, this approach, this belief system that they have, or whatever you want to call it, this kind of mania, to really disappear, or at least to be going in the other direction in a significant way. And they're not going to do that, right? This is what I mean. It's rotten so much further even than what we see on this issue of a bunch of communists who, you know, love Hamas. And it's, of course, funny because Hamas would completely hate them and mutilate and murder them probably because they're savages. Hamas is an evil terrorist entity. But yeah, I mean, that's where this is. I don't know. The right kind of sits here and looks at this all and says, yeah, these people are... Jesse, there was a flag burning on my campus 3 weeks after 9/11. Think about it.
Of course. Of course.
Like this. So people are, you know, people are like late to this party and they're like, oh my gosh, they're crazy. And look what they're saying. I'm like, they have been training kids to hate white Christian males at these schools as the oppressor and, you know, the patriarchy and all this stuff for as long as we've been adults, probably longer than that. And now on this issue, they're just figuring out that these kids are lunatics who hate America and civilization. Welcome to the party, pal, as McClane said in Die Hard.
Welcome to the party. Actually, I have a question about domestic and how this applies domestically. Joe Biden's getting a lot of play for this very fine people on both sides line he gave yesterday. He was Joe Biden. I'm sure you've seen it.
Do you condemn the anti-Semitic protests on college campuses?
I condemn the anti-Semitic protests. That's why I've set up a program to deal with that. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians and how they're being.
Buck, so I have this theory, and it's just a theory, and I know that you're more than willing to correct me when you disagree with me on these things, but I don't think Democrats at Biden's level, forget about the street animals on campus, I don't think any of them care about any of this stuff at all. They don't really care about Israel. They don't care about Hamas. They don't care about Palestine. They don't care about Iran. They don't care about these things. They care about their domestic voting coalition, and they need all the Muslims in America to keep voting Democrat, and they need 2/3 of the Jews in America to keep voting Democrat. And their entire response to all of this has just been trying to walk that tightrope and keep both coalitions in the Democrat fold. Am I crazy?
No, I've said this all along about this issue. The whole position of the Democrats is to play both sides, have it both ways, have their cake and eat it too. They want to play this game where it's not possible, but they just are hoping that no one's going to figure out what's really happening, or that they're not going to be held to account for it. You can't say that you're opposed to the anti-Semitism stuff on campus. I mean, these lunatics, they hate Jews, Jesse. Like, I mean, I even feel like anti-Semitism is sort of, it almost sterilizes what's going on a little bit, or makes it seem a little like it's academic. Like, oh, they're anti-Semitic. It's like they're saying completely insane, hateful, lunatic stuff. I mean, Israel just suffered the worst terror attack in the world since 9/11, and that's what led us to this moment where they're going into Gaza. Hamas, Israel has, I believe, a God-given right to defend its people and to do whatever it has to do. And the Biden administration is like, yeah, go get them. But hold on a second. Don't go get them. And you sit there, you go, well, it can't be both, right? It can't be we stand by Israel's right to defend itself, but we also want a ceasefire. And all along, there's been this, it's really more, it's interesting. I haven't talked to you about this yet, and I know we're probably running out of time, and I don't even know if I have time to tell you congratulations on getting signed by Premier. This is really important, though. I mean, Clay loved this one, so, and whenever he starts referring to something I say is, well, we said, I'm like, well, then he likes it, because clearly, it's good. It's like, well, we were saying anyway. But I said initially on the show, I said, you have to understand that in America, the Palestinian issue is not a religious conflict; it's a racial conflict. And the way that and you see this, right? You see there's a lot of Black students on campus who feel unbelievable solidarity with the Palestinians, feel so strongly about this issue. Now, there are some Muslim students that maybe it's more of an issue of religious and historical background for them. But effectively, the radical left on campus views Israel-Palestine as a white oppressor of non-white brown people issue. And that's how they've mobilized around it for a long time now. And it doesn't make sense because there are Ethiopian Jews, and there are, I don't even have time to get into all this. And there's 1 million Arabs living in Israel. But the point that the reality that they work with is this is almost like a foreign extension of BLM. You know what I'm saying? Like this is, and it is very, very similar apparatus at work of how they're mobilizing and trying to shut things down, and the slogans and the shouting and all the rest of it. This is the people that were supporting BLM. They obviously didn't achieve anything. In fact, they made the whole country worse, and there's more violence, and tragically more Black people in cities in America died because of the idiotic policies that BLM pushed for, because of the increase in homicide and violence, as you and I both know. But this is an opportunity to do that, white oppressor, brown oppressed, situation. I mean, this is basically what they're trying to do right now. And that's, I think, when you see it in that lens, it all makes sense, because otherwise, like, what do they demand a ceasefire. Say, for how long? Jesse, these people don't even know. They couldn't name more than 2 towns, probably more than 1 town in Israel. Like, they know nothing. These kids are imbeciles, and they feel so strongly about this that they'll camp out on a quad in a tent and maybe have the police like pepper spray them over, and they're like, you see in the videos, they're all freaking out. I'm like, the cop said move, you don't move, you're gonna get pepper sprayed. Does that all make sense, by the way, in terms of like the racial angle
It
to the
does,
conflict?
but it does completely. It's not a religious thing. For Americans, it's a racial thing. I'm glad you and I came up with that together. By the way,
there we go.
before I let you go really quickly, Buck, Ilhan Omar's daughter. What are we thinking? Hot? Not hot? She's been in the news a lot. Ilhan Omar's much debated. I'm dealing with the mother-daughter thing. What are your thoughts?
Well, for those at home who may not know, years ago, Jesse unknowingly got me into trouble because we had a public discussion on Twitter about how Ilhan Omar was good looking. And then some people at a place where I previously worked, not a place where I work now, got very upset at me saying, Ilhan Omar, crazy, but like kind of hot. I have to take, I will admit, I do not know. Is her daughter in the, I know I've read the headlines, but I haven't really seen the photos. But my guess is
part of the protests. She got kicked out.
She may fall somewhere on the hot crazy scale that is going to make you question. Maybe you could bring her politics around. I don't know. I think it's possible.